Greetings, my dear friends and patients. Here I am back on live format to share with you some of the experiences I've had and learned through my own life as a physician, and so these experiences can help you go forward in finding a very healthy lifestyle. First, for those that do not know me yet, my name is Ivan Figueroa or Ivan Figueroa Otero, MD, a physician by initial training, a pediatric surgeon, retired from the academic life many years ago. I'm 75 years old and I retired around 60. And now I'm redirecting my course of living to a more integrative type of medical care, which I'm very comfortable with and I feel very joyful about. I respect this sort of approach to medicine as much as I respected my approach as a pediatric surgeon. So today here I am. I'm going to show you a little bit highlights of what I consider the bioethical style of living, or the medical bioethical style of living, that can really assure us a healthier life. And let's try to understand what I mean by bioethical style of living. This is a style that sees our universe, or see ourselves within the universe, as holographic beings within a holographic pattern. You're going to have to look to the concept of hologram, but it's a process of interconnection that all the parts of the universe, which is a hologram, are interconnected in a format that not necessarily is physically, but mainly energetically. We can consider in the spiritual sense that we're all connected by the energy of love as part of the great family of light we are within our creation. So the bioethical style of living is that which balances out the needs, the spiritual needs of our own creation, our own inner needs, with those of the physical or biological needs of the body that would be needed to allow our experience in this lifetime to go forward. So let's say it's a balance. The bioethical living is a proper balance in which our body would manifest all the superior or beneficial qualities that the spirit wants facilitates it to happen. So that's what I'm talking about when I talk about a bioethical style of living. Which are the characteristics of this bioethics of vision of medicine? I'm going to talk to them. There are about 12 characteristics, and I will dwell upon them in detail to see that you understand the concept that I like to propose in my books about this. Number one, the first concept, we have to understand that diseases cannot exist without a patient. Diseases by itself are just written words on paper, but they don't affect anybody until somebody physically feels the symptoms are combined into a disease process. So when we look to treat a condition, we should focus on the patient and not on the condition, because the patient is that allows the disease to take hold of, and every patient we treat is different with the same condition. That's what integrative medical care does, that separates itself from the medical care of modern medicine, which tries to make protocols or systems of treatment that we can learn and treat one diagnosis with many persons with the same protocol of treatment. This is used a lot in modern medicine, but in our concept of medicine, we don't believe in that. Every patient is a very independent, unique experience that we have to approach in a unique manner to treat. Number two, all of our sickness result from the ignorance and how to care or prevent the imbalances or disequilibriums that we call symptoms. We are responsible, yet we don't know about that, because we don't know the chain of connection between what precipitated these symptoms in our bodies, and we don't make the connections to go into the deepest part of the cause to treat it, because we tend to focus on the symptoms as being the disease. And we should consider, at least in my opinion, that the symptoms are really only but the alarms or the check engines that our body, each cell in our body warns us that something that we're doing in our lifestyle, in what we're sending to our body, either alimentary, mentally, emotionally, audition, seeing, is wrong or is toxic. And the body responds, giving you a check engine alarm. And then the first thing we have to do is sit down and review the way we're living and see what conditions could be affecting my body or my cells to be calling me with check engines all the time. Remember that. The next time you have an alarm or symptoms, sit down and think, what is it that I could have done that precipitated this? It's obvious. Then when we get up with a hangover in the morning, the cause is the drinking, the excess of alcohol. Some people may be so sensitive that even a tiny little bit of alcohol will create a hangover. So it's not difficult to understand the cause here, and the treatment should be going away from the use of alcohol, or in some cases, moderating the use of alcohol if you believe in the social aspects of it, and that will be the solution. But some symptoms are much more complex. A headache pattern, a recurrent patterns of headache, could be many causes for it. We have to always discard the physical, traditional, modern causes of headaches, but we have to include all the causes of headache that are not physically, organically obtained. It could be emotional, it could be alimentary, it could be originated by stress, it could be hormonal disbalances. So then all those things we have to consider to treat the patient in that sense. Okay? So basically remember, let's not put off the alarms or put them off or disconnect them without knowing what's going on with our body. You have to remember this concept before we go on forward, that every cell in our body is in connection in a holographic pattern with each other cell of our body. No matter in which organs it's located, each cell is aware of each other's presence. The cells from the liver are connected with the cells of the brain. The cells from the muscles are connected with the cells of the nervous system. They're all connected. We are not aware of that, and medical care or modern medicine does not know how to measure that. So all we can do is measure the laboratories or the clinical tests that we do to infer or know what's going on with the dysfunction of our bodies, what is normal and what is abnormal. But each of our cells know what's normal, and they are living laboratories. They're always continually measuring our levels of whatever functional things we are, our hormones, our sugars, our fat levels, our cholesterol. They're always being measured by our cells. And they're gauging and giving feedbacks to each other and to each of the organs to do the corrective process that we need to balance out what's normal. So really our cells know what's really normal with us more than the labs that we create. The labs are criteria made by man, which we are not always right, and we use statistics to determine what is normal in a population range. Let me have a little bit of sip of my tea. Green tea, I love it. Different types. So we got that. The cells are really living laboratories, and they connect with each other. And then you will see later on that these cells are the ones that create the alarm systems by using your autonomic or sympathetic or parasympathetic system to control and influence the symptoms that appear in our different symptoms. So basically, in another talk, we'll talk about the autonomic system and how our cells use the autonomic system to warn us that something is wrong with what we're doing. Great. Let's go for the next step. All the memories of the imbalances or the actions that have not been appropriate, that have been toxic, that our cells have fed that they are not right, are stored in the memory of each one of our cells. Yes, our cells have memories. This cellular memory is kept the same. The memory is kept of our thinking, our process, our mental process are kept in our memory, in our brain. Because these little cells, they're also our brains. They have all the information. They keep that information. So whenever we do something wrong, they store it in the brain of each cell, which is called the DNA. That is our chromosomes, our genes. In this DNA, everything that we've done accumulates. Either it be wrong or good, or bad or good, it will be recorded. And it will be recorded with the response that it got from that reaction. So that's the memory. And remember that we do get the memory. We have in our cells, in our chromosomes or our genes, all the memory of the things that our parents, great-grandparents, all the way back to the initial humans in this planet did are stored in our DNA. It's amazing. So this the history, the evolutive history of our cells and our human race is stored in a gene pool. In another time, we'll give another talk about that interesting thought which is called epigenetics. What enters our body, this is the fourth part. What enters our body by any one of the five senses that our senses do not recognize, that our mind does not recognize as beneficial, is then considered toxic. Whatever comes into our minds, be it by visual, taste, hearing, touch, all those little five senses that we have, is interpreted at the cellular level and at the brain level. It's either good or bad, toxic or non-toxic. When it's toxic, the body will react to this toxic material in a defense mode, which we call the inflammatory mode. Inflammation. Inflammation is associated to the immune system of our bodies, and it's what we sometimes creates our allergies or our interactions of food that we don't like, because the body doesn't like that. There's something wrong, and the body reacts with inflammation. And an inflammation is a way, as we'll talk in other small talks, is a way to age. Inflammation is work. And as we live, we get inflamed and we get older because we put our body in a work mode to detox those toxins that are coming to our body, which our body don't like. And that is work. And when we work excessively, either mentally or physically, we start to age. So that's the secret. Don't get inflamed. Don't eat the wrong things. We're going to talk about it. You got to eat properly. In my sense, eat properly is use plant-based nutrition, and especially the vegan style. Let's go forward with this. This immunological reaction, which we call the inflammatory process, in its early stages is the one that triggers the alarms that we mention as symptoms that initially, in the early stages, can be corrected very easily. For example, if we have heartburn, and we notice a heartburn, we associate it with certain products of milk or milk-derived products, or we associate it with fried food, and we start saying, oh, this doesn't go well with me, let's not fry this food, let's just do it baked or broil it, And let's not use so much dairy products, derivatives. And when we cut that lifestyle, boom, our body feels better, and the heartburn and the acidity disappears. Now, that is an early correction of a process. But many of us, as we see in commercials, what they do, oh, I'm going to have this barbecue, I'm going to have this fried sausages in the morning. I don't worry about it. I'm going to have my Pepto-Bismol. I'm going to have my little anti-acid pills ready, and boom, my dessert will be an anti-acid pill or a Pepto-Bismol, and I'm ready to go forward. That is the usual style that man does. Is the wrong way out, because the process will repeat, and there will be damages to your stomach, which can become an ulcer, can become a cancer, can become something else, or progress to a more severe absorption disease. That's the wrong way to react to them. This process or this reaction of inflammation that we call symptoms initially can be mild, and I say this to remember you as initially our cells whisper to us with certain early symptoms so that we pay attention. But if we continue doing the wrong thing and we don't listen to ourselves, then they will call out to us with more complex symptoms called diseases. And then the process will take longer to improve or correct. And if we continue not paying attention to our cells alarms, remember the check alarms, then they will yell at us with cancer and other advanced diseases that are really difficult to correct by that time. By that time, we'll just need a lot of medications if you go traditional medicine, or a lot of desintoxication if we go to natural styles of medicine. It's very important. Pay attention to the whispers of your cells and don't wait till they yell at you with severe disease. Now let's talk a bit on the sixth part. Let's talk about the inflammatory genetic history I talked about that accumulates in our genes, remember? Let me quote the Bible, what this I understand this is. It says, the Bible, the Lord visits the iniquity of the fathers on the children and the children's children to the third and the fourth generation. That's in Exodus. And what it's telling us is that we inherit tendencies of disease in our gene pools from way back. That's where you see some races have more incidence of some diseases than other races. That's why you see that women, some have more incidence of some diseases than men in the pattern. And for example, heart disease is more frequent in men than women, but now women are catching up by doing the wrong styles. They're repeating men's, they want to be more like men, more liberated, and they're repeating the same mistakes of eating, and then they're developing the same rate of heart disease. Let me have a lot of sip of my little green tea, excuse me. It's very important that you understand that. What it means is that what we call sins that we inherit are really genetic misfortunes or genetic bad habits that we have accumulated in our gene pool. Then they come up later in later generations as cancer, heart disease, problems with, for example, bipolar disorders, schizophrenia, autism, all the gamma of diseases we know, yet we don't know where they come from because we know how to classify them, but we don't know where they come from. But then I maintain that they come from our lifestyles in the past. So if that is true, the most thing that we have to do is be aware of the wrong lifestyles, correct the lifestyles of our forefathers, and if we know we have a high incidence of heart disease, we have to start early with our nutritional lifestyles to avoid the high-risk foods that would increase that. If a woman has a high-risk cancer rate, in breast cancer, for example, and it's a genetic alteration that is inherited, she's got to change her lifestyle completely, go vegan, eliminate all external sources of estrogen. Yes, because modern medicine tends to focus on the estrogen that we produce as the most pathogenic. I tend to differ that the estrogen that really we have to worry about is the estrogen that we ingest in foods, in chickens, in poultry, in meats, in soy-derived products, which are soy-derived have a lot of what we call estrogenic effects, which people used to use to control the hot flashes in the past with special medications. But we notice that these estrogenic products that we have in Mother Nature can increase the risk of breast cancer, but they increase the growth of breast tissue. So then we have to remember that estrogen sources are also exogenic and not only what we produce. So then by cutting down on the rate of nutrition of some animal type products or some other sources of vegetarian products that have estrogen, we can decrease the rate of malignancy in these persons. This is something I will discuss in other situations. But remember, there are changes we can do to diminish the chance of inheritance, the inherited cancers and the inherited disease of the heart, by changing the way we eat, by exercising, by controlling our stress. So that's what we call epigenetics, and we'll discuss that in another conference. Most modern therapies, here I'm going to be a little bit critical of our modern medical care, and we are used in the modern medical, especially the American system, to rapidly eliminate symptoms. We're so sensitive to pain, and I cannot have anything wrong in my body, especially if I'm starting to hit the 30s and then the 40s, and after having some little pains in my back and then pains in my fingers. That cannot be. How can it be? When the first wrinkles come out of my face and the first streaks of white hair comes out in our hair, things get really hectic here. I said, uh-oh, I'm getting old. That's not fair. Then we start doing things to maintain our youth. Whatever we have to do, we'll do anything. Surgery, dye our hairs, the many creams that are available for it, the Botox injections. We don't want to get older. But we don't focus on the reasons that while you're aging, which is the inflammatory process. And if we continue treating the symptoms of our patients without looking for their causes, the same cause that created those symptoms will progress. Remember, from the whispers to the calls to the yells, the yelling, or the high-pitched yells that we do when we don't pay attention. So our body keeps going forward and progressing the disease because we didn't treat the cause. We treated the symptoms. So we continue that. We're going the wrong road, and we're going to deteriorate, get older, and get sicker every day. So let's not just treat the symptoms. Let's go, Doc, give me a pill for this, give me a pill for this. One of the most severe conditions that we have today is the drug addiction that's going on with narcotics, and it's a pandemic. It's a pandemic that's going on right now because people are addicted to narcotics. And these are people who have been prescribed. These are not the people on the street who are buying the drugs. The severity of these people is that at some time they had a surgery, at some time they had an injury, at some time they had a fracture, and they were given some narcotics. And for some reason or another, this prescription kept going back from physician to physician. They go around, they shop for a physician that will give them the pen, and then suddenly they're hooked. And then the narcotics we have now, the new ones, I don't want to say their names, are 20 to 30 times more addictive than the original heroin or morphine. It's unbelievable. And that's why we're having such a high incidence of death, which could be suicide, could be natural, with this. Let's not get into the treatment mode of our symptoms without looking for its cause, please. Be careful. Number 8. The worst sort of intoxication is not really alcoholic or drug intoxication. The worst is the mental effect of our emotions. That's the worst toxicity. And you know which emotion is involved in most of these cases? Guilt. That's what I've studied. That's what I work with in my patients. That's what I talk about in the book Spirituality 103, The Forgiveness Code, which I say guilt is really an obsolete word in the dictionary of love, because love does not create guilt upon human beings. Love guides them into learning from their mistakes for them to rectify. These experiences that we have, what we call negative experiences in our life, are just opportunities or lessons of love where we can go forward and grow with them. And we review each one of our lives in our stages as we go forward. We start to see how these difficult circumstances, our dysfunctional families, our dysfunctional marriages, our divorces, our problems in raising kids, have really made us stronger and better human beings. And we have learned by the effect of trial and error from this circumstance, which I call lessons of love. So remember, it is this guilt toxicity that really hurts us, because it works very subtle. It works in the subconscious aspect of our mind, and it's just like a little drop of water in a rock. It erodes us, and we're not aware of it. We can't be aware unless we work with ourselves or work with people who can help us in finding that. Number 9. The most effective healing process then should be the detoxification of all accumulated physical and mental toxicities. That's because the reasons for our disease was the toxicities that we accumulated. And then the definite reversal of the initial process that originated the intoxication. If we know the cause, if we can trace it to a certain lifestyle, then we start doing actions to reverse the cause by changing our lifestyles, be it physical, alimentary, or emotional. This healing is the most important thing, is saying, I made a mistake. But everybody can make mistakes. Nobody's perfect, since I think it's good to look towards making ourselves more perfection ourselves, but never to expect to become perfect, because it's not a fixed goal. It's a way to improve ourselves by trying to be better that gets us to a certain goal. But when we just reach the specific goal that we put ahead of ourselves, and that goal may not be reached because each one of us has different talents or limitations, then we get frustrated. And frustration turns into anger. And anger turns into lack of self-awareness and maybe lack of self-esteem, because I can't do things what people expect from me to do, or I expect myself to do, because God usually doesn't apply that much pressure upon us. He guides us in the path of learning that allows us to learn from our mistakes. At least that is my experience. And then number 10, this detoxification process can only be done by reversing the actions that we did wrongly in the past and correcting them by doing the opposite. But this cannot be done by somebody else that comes in with a magic pill or a magic bullet or a magic therapy, whatever it be, natural or non-natural, that will take away the toxicity of my body. and some magically that person will heal me. That doesn't occur. That's an irresponsible way of thinking about healing. In Spanish, I say, si yo meto la pata, yo la saco. If I commit a mistake, I have to remove that mistake and correct it. It's my responsibility. We cannot let others solve our problems for us. They can help us, orient us, support us during our problem mode, seeking mode. But they cannot do it for us. We raise kids and we tend to protect them by solving most of the problems because we're fearful that they can go through the experiences that made me what I am now. And I'm afraid that I don't want them to suffer the way I did. And I protect them by solving the problems or preventing those situations in their life. I am doing the worst thing that I can do for my kids. And I will see the results. Or maybe I won't see them. They will experience them when I'm not around. Because nobody's going to be around. These are the causes of codependency between human beings that create a lot of suffering. And we have to let our kids learn by their own mistakes. Remember the prodigal son, the history of the prodigal son, you should review it. Because the prodigal son is the way we learn. We have to learn by our mistakes. I tell my patients we're all prodigal sons, learning to differentiate between our spiritual inheritance and our physical, biological inheritance. They're both important, but the most important that will guide us through the difficult times is to recognize that we're sons of God, sons of the light, and all brothers in the spirit of love. That's what will keep us in the difficult times. And then we have to know that we're going back to the source where we came from. After we finish this experience we call life, which is a beautiful experience, and which we're learning, we have to remember that this experience, this wisdom that we learn here, with our soul, we carry it back to our source. It's a symbol of the three kings going to the manger and bringing those special gifts. Those special gifts was wisdom that they have accumulated throughout the years. Those were the wisdom kings. And that's what the meaning of each one of us are here. We are here to become wise beings. Not kings, but wise beings. And then come back and share that experience with the source of our Creator. Remember that. It's very important. And now let's go to number 11. This one you're going to like. This is about faith. F-A-I-T-H, which I made a little acronym for it called Fully Allowing Our Inner Wisdom to Heal You. Fully allowing inner wisdom to heal you. Faith. Remember that. Put it down. Faith. Fully allowing inner wisdom to heal you. Because we have to remember our source and where we come from. And this process of healing is facilitated by reconnecting the Son of Man with the Son of God. We have to reconnect the two parts that Jesus taught us in the Bible, the two experiences that he went through at the same time. We have to reconnect them and make them stronger. We have to realize that without the effort to understand the hidden lessons of love within the suffering of disease, we cannot progress. Repeat. We have to understand the hidden lessons of love within the suffering of our disease. Every disease should not be viewed as a punishment. It should be viewed as a learning experience of our mistakes, where we can correct within our bodies, heal our mentally and physically, and then also we're healing the epigenetic code of our chromosomes. Because as we correct, the new experience is kept or saved in these genome. So we are changing our DNA, and we can change our DNA for future generations. It's very important. That's the purpose of the new epigenetics, is to modify and improve our DNA, correct the mistakes from the past, and by acting in a different type of lifestyle. It's very important you remember that. You have to remember that faith can work only if we understand this concept, the merit of true healing. You have to understand, to win yourself, the strength of faith comes from the experience of living and understanding and taking responsibility for the symptoms that you have right now. If you do that, faith becomes a very strong ally to our healing. It becomes an essential part. My practice, one of my emphasis is to make sure that my patients activate the force of faith within themselves. Remember that faith is self-generated. In the Bible always said, you heal because of your faith. Always repeat it, and every time in the Bible is, you heal because of your faith. And not because the quality of the therapist or the healing power of the therapist. Remember that. It's the power of your inner faith that heals you. All this, on the last part of the discussion, number 12, should lead us to the concept that we have to eliminate the impression that we are just victims at random of the results of others' mistakes. And we think that whatever happens to me, it's a mistake because my parents didn't raise me well, they didn't give me the right nutrition, they didn't give me the right education. We look for faults, or somebody, a boss, one of my bosses didn't give me a chance to develop myself. So we look ourselves as victims of our suffering. And we tend to blame others for our responsibility. It's like I have to use President Truman's phrase, the buck stops here. The buck stops here. And we must start stopping the blame game. I hate this blame game that is going on now with this pandemic. I don't like it. I don't like it when we keep going back to we could have done this, we could have done that. That's a waste of time. Let's start working with what we have now, join our hands together, share our responsibility as human beings, and go to correct the process for future pandemics not to occur. Let's be lenient and forgiving with each other. Let's not live in the past. The good news, like was given in our Bible, is that even inherited imbalances can be corrected by the new science of epigenetics. Remember, epigenetics, look for that. There's many writers who are experts in that. And one of my books coming up is called Healing the Cancer in Our Genes. Repeat, one of my books that's coming up is called Healing the Cancer in Our Genes. It's going to be a detailed analysis of epigenetic lifestyles and how we create these symptoms. So basically, the changing of our toxic lifestyles is the solution to our healing. But this includes the alimentary toxicity, the physical toxicity, and the mental and emotional toxicity. So be hopeful, be joyful. We have the solution to our problem, but be more responsible with your health. Thank you for paying attention to me. I hope you enjoyed, and share me a couple of messages if you've taken advantage of what we're giving you. Remember, there'll be more to come in more detail. Thank you very much. Lots of blessings to all of you. Thank you.